the only one.
You're right. I certainly did.
Man. I don't know if Cora ever responded at all.
You bought a lot.
Lake Hawassi.
Cemetery lot?
No, it's about, I think it's got 7,600 acres.
All they responded.
Yes, it's Bear Pond. Yeah, you're not. I think I'm headed for this week. Well, I had one. I had a 2-bedroom, Pioneer Creek and Blue Ridge. And it's just too much price.
Well,
I want to be not totally by myself, but I don't like 10,000 people.
Blue Ridge is got very commercialized.
So I've got it sold.
If it's Pioneer Creek, that's a valuable property.
Well, it's only a good part of it too.
I didn't call and remind her. I didn't sign on the agenda.
We bought our cabin up there 8 years ago in July. 3 acres of creek, nice fresh creek. I call it work. It's got rocks, crashes, rocks, spring fed. He's going to set the springs in
Good morning, welcome. We have a quorum now, so good morning for the workshop of the Griffin City Board of Commissioners October 30th, 2018 meeting, special called workshop. First time to discuss further options addressing auto repair facilities and the unsightly outside storage of vehicles under repair. Development Services, Tucson Kirk, and Chief of Staff Jessica O'Connor will address. Good morning, sir. Happy day.
Good morning. So, again, in the sake of beautification, if you will, the original ordinance states that auto repair shops have to have 4 cars per bay, so on and so forth. The alternative that we've spoken about would be that businesses could park operable cars per the number of approved parking spaces allowed according to UDC parking regulations that are located outside the principal structure. So basically what we're saying is that if the business would, one, strike their parking, follow the parking regulations that's already outlined in UDC, they could have as many cars as they want per parking space. So, for example, A1 would have to strike their parking lot. They'd have to follow all the regulations as far as the drive aisles, having handicap parking spaces, things of that nature. You have some others that would have to actually follow the code to the letter of the law because they would be putting in new parking. So, for example, maybe, I don't know, let's just say cars, for example. If they needed to add any parking, to pave it, or anything of that nature, they would have to bring it up to code as far as handicap spacing, making sure that it's landscaped, the drive aisles are, 12 feet or 24 feet, depending on what they're trying to do. So it's a little bit different. So there's not necessarily one size fits all. But if they have the parking spaces on their site, put a car in that space.
So to give it, any other business that's in the central business or in the business corridors, they already have to follow these rules and regulations.
Correct.
So whether it's a grocery store, whether it's a pharmacy,
Correct.
whether it's a parts store,
Correct.
they basically treated the same way anybody else.
Correct.
But then we can enforce the side of the junk vehicle ordinance, or that place could be.
Right, that doesn't change. That part of it doesn't change. So it has to be operable cars. So, for example, Maxi Lube, I think they use like the very back lot. It's a dirt lot that they use to store cars or park cars. It would need to be paved, and it would need to meet all the regulations. And so, with that being said, we'll say A1 would only have to bring in something showing how they would sketch out what the parking is going to look like. But if you're doing a full-blown parking lot, it has to be engineered to make sure that you follow the topos and make sure the water drains properly. So be mindful too, that's going to kick in possible stormwater fees, like we said, striping, parking lot striping, drive aisles, handicap parking. It's going to incur a little cost.
But at this time, any other business in the city of Griffin has to follow these rules and ordinances based on.
Correct.
So right now, they basically have had a pass in regards to their expectations.
Yeah, I mean, they were already existing, so, yeah, so if you want to call it a pass, you can, but they're existing. You don't necessarily an existing business, but when they alter the exterior, or if they alter the parking, then you have to meet the new code.
What's the board's thought, considerations?
Does this help them as far as the capacity for the business that they are trying to run? Is this going to help alleviate? Is that going to bring their capacity, or?
I don't know. I can't answer that.
It's got to help. Well, this would no longer establish 4 cars per bay.
Right.
You got a parking lot, you got it paved, you got it striped, you could have whatever.
Right. If you got 30 parking spaces, you can have 30 cars, but you got to worry about your customers. You got to worry about the handicap parking spaces. But not everyone's going to have a large lot.
Is it something that you can enforce? That can code enforcement? Can we enforce this?
I think it'd be fairly easy. If it's a parking space, there's a car in it. I mean, that's what it is. But they won't be allowed to have parking or cars in the drive aisles. I mean, it's fairly, I guess, simple. But let's say right now that our location has 5 bay doors. They can have 20 cars right now. But when you stripe the parking lot, they may only get 10.
Okay. I mean, if that brings everybody up to, I never wanted to undo the ordinance or any of the work that businesses already put into effort, but I also think that A1 is a more unique business, so it's hard to cookie cut. So
right. So I mean, like I said, there's no one size fits all. I did some more research last night. If you look at Riverdale, they say that they allow 80% of the parking spaces that are allowed, but 80%, but the maximum 15 cars, period. So if you got, I don't know, easy math, let's say 100 parking spaces, that's 80 cars you could technically have, but they max it out at 15. That's it.
And it has nothing to do with the amount of land they got it on?
Nope.
That ain't a good one either.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's no one size fits all, and that's just Riverdale. So if there was a magic pill, I think we all would have taken it.
So I kind of missed out. What was the a paid parking lot? You could park a car in every parking space.
Correct.
But the parking lot has to be paid.
Correct.
That's right. So I know we said that you couldn't enforce one set of rules on one business. So if you got a business that does not have the capacity to have but maybe 10, 12 parking spaces.
Right.
And they had 5 bay doors where they could park 20 cars.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're saying that it's a possibility they would have to do stormwater and all this other stuff.
Yep.
So even with A1 coming into compliance with all of, because I went by there and they do have a lot of parking places, but having to meet all these other rules, ain't that gonna be more costly?
It'll cost some people, yes. Like A1, so it's already existing parking lot, it's already paved. So they would need to stripe in, make sure the handicap parking spaces are on site. And then as far as stormwater, I would assume they already have stormwater.
Water based on their impervious surface.
Right.
But they'll have more impervious surface and may have to put in a pond.
Well, not if they're existing,
If they have an existing lot, they don't.
And like you got garages that have maybe 2 bay doors, now they can park 8 cars. And they maybe don't have parking spaces, the room, what they probably couldn't park with maybe 2 or 3 cars after.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So it's you can lose the capacity to have cars based off of this.
How does this affect our ability to enforce the junk ordinance?
There's no junk. Junk is completely gone.
But
So only
But they got to be operable to start with.
Right, it had to be operable to start with. So we know you're going to bring in a car that's not running. We understand that. But you can't have a car sent there that's flat or missing a front end or, depending on what. Most of those businesses are located in PID anyway, industrial. So you'll know if a car is junked or not. Riverdale, or at least you're pursuing to know. Again, Riverdale goes as far as putting stickers in the windows, and they go all out. And if the car's there longer than the allowed time, the city will tow it, but the owner has to pay the expense. So, it's again
at a garage, at
a auto repair shop. Yeah.
I think that's my question, because I think initially when you start off, you don't intend to have a junk car.
Right.
But by whatever means, now it's been sitting there for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then I know the one guy came in and said about having to get the title once they've abandoned the vehicle.
Right.
And so my question is, what are our thoughts about what happens when it starts to slowly creep back up? And now, because right now everybody's in compliance and there aren't any junk vehicles, but in 2 or 3 years, when now somebody's got 5 cars and they're sitting there this entire time, then what do? We come back and say, oh, well, now we need to address the fact that they piled up again, or how do we address that?
No, so if we notice the car is junked or perceived to be junked, that's when we go visit them and say, hey, here's your warning, you need to get the car moved in so many days, what have you. If it doesn't move it within the warning period, then you write them citation.
Okay.
So no junk vehicles.
So even in I think it was A1, in a parking lot that's on a big parking lot that's on private property, we can just ride through the parking lot and see?
And for the most part you can see from the street too as well.
Well, and don't forget, we've had the junked or inoperable motor vehicle ordinance for a long time. And what we were doing was we had exempted auto repair shops from them not being able to have them. So we had always said residentially you can't have a junked vehicle. And so we said if we're going to clean up the city and we're going to remove blight, we're no longer going to exempt auto repair shops from being able to have junked vehicles. So we removed that exemption. We're not suggesting by any means that we now say, yeah, you can have as many junked vehicles as you want. If it's a public parking lot, we can ride on it and we can say, you've got to move that junked vehicle. If they need to move it inside, that's fine. Also, what Mr. Parrott said last week is true in that once he's trying to deal with an abandoned vehicle or a junk vehicle and trying to get title to it, he can't remove it from his lot, but he said he can't touch it, and that's not true. He can move it inside his building. It's not that it has to sit in that parking lot because now he's going through trying to get title to an abandoned vehicle. He can move it. He just can't move it from that lot, so he could certainly move it inside.
Over on 13th Street, that garage or shop, whatever it is over there, there are some cars that's been out there for a long time. And I know they're not operable. What is the...
He's been cited for him.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he's already.
And how would that affect him? Okay, so if we did do the thing about the paid parking lot, well, pretty much none of his stuff is paid.
So when you deal with paid parking, there's no there's setback regulations. And some of these areas are, right against the sidewalk. But one thing I want to go back on is that even if you have, let's say you have 20 parking spaces, if you want to have 5 junk cars out there, then that's on you. You're losing business at that point. Mm-hmm. I would think you'd be motivated to move the junk cars so you can bring in cars that you actually can work on. But that's neither here nor there. But just a thought. So again, it's parking is going to be a big thing. You have setbacks.
How do you distinguish between what you're referring to as a junk car or an inoperable vehicle that's been taken in for repair?
Well, the ordinance already defines that. Hang on.
Yeah. I think when something's been taken in to be repaired, it's a question of intent.
Right.
Because otherwise, if you don't repair it.
So right now, a junked or inoperable motor vehicle means any motor vehicle that is wrecked, wholly or partially dismantled, majorly disassembled, or missing a key component such as a motor, transmission, or body parts so as to be incapable of normal operation in the manner intended, including disassembled parts, pieces, or components thereof. So that's something that's torn apart or being used for parts, which a lot of our auto repair shop owners have said that's what they do, and that's not allowed. If you want to do that, you're going to have to do that within your building. You've got that opportunity, you've got a building, you can use it there. I think what we're finding is we have a lot of really good auto repair shop owners, and they've done really good business, but they've expanded their business so much that they don't fit on their lot anymore. And unless we say you've got to have the space that you need to be able to operate your business, and right now they're just using whatever they can find, whether it's the next, the person next door's lot or the street even. Some of them are parking in, and that's just not appropriate.
Ms. O'Connor.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I know you're not an elected official, but as an elected official, what would you suggest that we, this board who voted to put this ordinance in place, that we go out and tell all of those other auto repair shops who came into compliance, who spent their money and their time to do what this board set out to do, clean up the city, create this ordinance, that it was going to be a hardship, not that everybody was going to have to follow the same rules. We were going to have to get it done. We're going to have to get it cleaned up. How do I go back to those people and say, am I supposed to say, the staff changed this, that the work that you've done, that you put in, the money that you've spent, the time that you spent, the trouble that you went through to move all of those cars, to do whatever you had to do, is the city, the commissioners, are we expected to refund those people their money? Something we're going to have to do that's going to put us back in trying to fix another problem? Because if I was on that side of it and I spent my money because this board put out an ordinance and said this is what we're going to do, and you're going to have to fall into compliance, you're going to have to follow the rules, and I go out and spend my money, then I'd be looking for the city or somebody to compensate me in some way or another.
In that regard, because this is not a confiscatory ordinance. It's setting a standard. And legislation changes.
Okay, so it's the legislation. This board makes a decision that they worked on for 2 years, and the legislation changed, and then what all this work that they've done to come into compliance, now you tell them they don't have to come into compliance. That's just okay.
What I hear him saying
they have to be in compliance with whatever the standard is at that time.
Perfect.
For a lot of places is, okay, they've come into compliance. Now we're going to give them a different set of rules and compliance to come into. I mean, to me, that's,
But I think
I can't be comfortable with that.
But right now, we make every other business, those that came in later, we make every business have a parking lot regulation regardless of how you have spacing on your lot, except for the folks that are in the auto repair business. And so this would basically bring every business into the same rules in regards to how
That's just
No, what we require is any business to meet the parking regulations, regardless of what kind of business they are. However, if it is existing, they do not have to bring it up to code unless they are fixing it. So now the auto repair shops, a lot of them would have to be going in to make a parking area. They will have to bring it up to code. It's not that auto repair shops have ever been exempt from the parking regulations. It's just that they are existing at this time.
But right now, you don't have to, you can have a parking lot without it being striped, where every other business has to be striped.
But that's not because of the type of business that it is. It's because it's an existing parking lot.
But we've making folks put handicap parking signs on commercial district.
So yeah, we are. So to that point, we're in the process of getting ready to deal with all parking in the city as far as striping, what have you.
We want to.
So
all of the garages, the suggestion is to make all of the garages paved, striped, park.
If they want to use the space to park cars. So I guess in theory, if they said, oh, we don't want to use the space, then they don't have to pay.
what we want, what some of us want to do is try to change the ordinance. That's what some of us are doing. Some of us staff made a recommendation. We're gonna have this ordinance. We're gonna enforce it, and when we start enforcing it, people start changing their minds. I'm not made of that.
The issue is
once we said we were going to do it, and other people came into compliance with it, I can't go back to those people and start saying, oh, well, a certain person came down, certain people started showing up, so they changed it. So the money that you spent, I apologize, that car that you got rid of, whatever you had to do to change it, see, I'm not made of that. I'm not going to use my position up here to do that to other people. So if we want to change it, if you got 4 people want to change it, y'all just, instead of trying to make up stuff up here as we go along, just say that you want to change the ordinance and be done with it. If you got a majority of the people that want to do it, then we'll do it. If not, all of this discussion is going to come down to just that. This is not, nobody is up here discussing parking lot, striping. None of that has nothing to do with this. All this is about, a guy came down here and he has a very good point. And he's got a larger parking lot and he wants more spaces. We have an ordinance in place. If people want to change the ordinance, change the ordinance. This shouldn't have been but a 10-minute meeting. I shouldn't even made it in here in time for this. Should have been a 10-minute meeting to say what you want to do. You don't have to make any excuses about why you want to do it. Just do it.
The excuse is that you've got folks that have more bays than doors.
Then do it.
And then
that's your excuse. Then do it.
You don't figure out a balance in either or choice.
The sensible thing would have been to figure out a way to accommodate that business or other businesses that fall under the same category that has the parking spaces. Instead of coming in trying to change the whole ordinance, we have ordinances where people come in and ask for special exceptions, or if they meet whatever rules we've set up, rather than trying to change the whole ordinance, maybe amending it so that it would be,
Well, I've asked that with staff, and staff comes back with a recommendation of doing it based on parking spaces. So I would prefer you give it choice A and choice B, A garage doors, or based on numbers.
I'm not comfortable with changing the ordinance. Period.
Okay. I think Ms. Ward made it. That's what I've been saying all along. That makes the most sense.
Because when you go start to change the ordinance, it's still going to affect a whole bunch. And I understand. I sympathize with A1 and whoever else that have these big businesses and want to change. But we've already put so many of these other smaller businesses in a hardship to come into compliance because they had gotten so mangled up with all these cars and this stuff. But now to go back and tell all of these people, we suggest that now after you've done all of this, we're gonna go back and make you pave your parking lot, and and do all of this other stuff. I'm not comfortable with that. What I feel like if this is a project that you've taken on, or whoever has taken it on, then you should have tried to figure out how to help to accommodate them, not to change the whole ordinance that's been worked on for 2 years.
And my recommendation was to base it on two choices, one on bay doors and one on number of bays. And to ratio it, based on the number of bays you have, it's 2 cars. If you've got garage doors, you base it on leaving it the same, 4 cars per door, or number of bays you have based on the square footage.
Wait, what?
So what I asked was that we look at leaving the 4 cars per bay door and doing 2 cars per bay. Whichever is greater, you have that choice. The staff says they wanted to look at going at the parking lot based on everyone else's commercial business. You've got a space, you park a car in it. That's not my first choice. I think going with if you've got 15 bays at a 2-car, you have up to 30 cars.
Everybody's not going to be happy. If you want to change it, change it. If not, do we have a closed session? It's been going on for 2 years. Just make a decision. We got it out here. You called all these people back down here to revise, do whatever. Don't be afraid to make a decision. I'm not. We've discussed this to discussions end.
Yes, sir.
So
let me just ask this because
go ahead.
I think we drove past Max Loop or something, and they have an abundance of bay doors, but their parking lot is very small. So what do we do when they come down and are the people standing in the audience that are upset that we have now changed the rule, and they have to, because that appears to be part of our issue, is that we set these rules, and then when the people come in and they start complaining, we have already said as a group and identified that particular business that they are going to face a hardship.
Well, Ms. Flowers, it depends on who they talk to.
Well, that's why I'm asking while we're sitting here.
Well,
what are we going to do when that business comes in and says, we've been in this community for this long, and based on the previous regulations, we were allowed to have, God, they've got an abundance of bay doors, a lot of cars, and now they don't have as parking spaces. They got like 6 of them. So then what are we going to say to them to say, okay, yeah, you were in compliance and that's all good, but we've changed the rules and now you do face a hardship. How as a board are we going to respond when they are standing here in the audience telling
I tell you how. Go ahead, I'm finished. I'll let you finish. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Because I already know how you feel. How are we then going to do that when they come in here, and it's not just going to be them, there's going to be some other business that comes back into the audience and says, why do I have to do this now? I was just in compliance with everything. You changed the rules, and now what am I supposed to do?
Can I go first?
No.
I was just I'm trying to figure out, is there a compromise that we handle both the bay door and the number of workspaces in a building that has maybe only 2 doors in it?
And I understand
and
that.
So is there a way that we can work out a compromise that route so that those that have invested their hard-earned money are still in compliance, and those that have a hardship, that are keeping their lots clean, that have the junk cars gone?
So what are you suggesting, that staff goes into all of these garages to see how many bay doors they have, how many bays they have inside the? How do you enforce that? How do
you rate a building based on number of bays they have, service bays in the building. But
Jessica, we looked at the square footage of the lot itself.
We did talk about that, but that's hard to enforce. That's why we can't make that recommendation. We'd be out there with tape measures and calculators, and we need something where code enforcement can drive by and say they're in compliance or they're not, or that's all they're going to do all day long. And then, that's just not something that staff can recommend from an enforcement mechanism to try and figure out square footage. The same issue that we have with the interior bays. We don't know how many they're going to have. So if we did a survey of each building as it sits right now, that would be fine. But who knows what they're going to define a bay compared to what we define a bay as, and then they're going to add one and we don't know about it, we cite them, they come to court. They're just, the enforcement mechanism for the interior bays or for square footage is just very hard.
And at what time does a car deemed junk? I mean, like Mr. Smallwood, who's here today, made a comment last Tuesday night that Chrysler, he orders a part from Chrysler, and it may take months. So where does a car deem from repair, goes from repair to junk?
If he's waiting on a part, that's not a big deal. If it's sitting out there with no hood on it, no tires on it, and on 4 blocks, that's a junked vehicle. But if it's waiting on...
He's waiting on his hood.
Put it
Have
in your
we
shop.
cited the business on Taylor Street beside McDonald's? After the ordinance has,
That's Mr. Smallwood.
I know,
right
okay.
And have we cited them was the question. Yes.
Okay, we're not in a position to, what are we giving, consensuses as to which way to go, or we can't vote or anything?
Before staff goes back and changes or rewrites or comes up with another ordinance, we kind of wanted some direction from you as to 2 things. 1, do you want to change it? And 2, if so, what would you like to change it to? Unfortunately, with all the research that staff has done over the last 2 years, we have not been able to, and it's a failure on our part, we have not been able to come up with a one-size-fits-all answer to this question.
Okay.
No matter what you do, there are going to be 1 or more auto repair shops that are not going to be happy. And if you just make the ordinance vague enough so everybody's happy, then there's really no need to have the ordinance.
Right.
So we either do the best we can to find an ordinance that fits the goals that the commission want to achieve, or we just don't have an ordinance.
So, between all of us, we've not been able to come up with anything other than what an ordinance that we already, all of us already voted on.
7-0.
Okay, so I can live with that ordinance myself. So whoever else that has an idea, you need to put it on the table and bring it before the board and just see what happens.
Well, the hardship here would be these car lots that do not have a paved lot.
Exactly.
They'd have to go back and pave the lot and stripe it.
All right.
So that's what I'm saying.
So-
If that's a suggestion and that's what you want to bring before us as a vote, then if the majority of this board agrees with that, then that's what it is.
But has it got to be paved? I mean, yes.
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 If you're going to change something, it now has to meet whatever the current code is. So paving would be changing.
So we can't base it on square footage of the lot. You can have some X amount of cars per square foot.
Well, you would want, if somebody's going to have a vehicle on a lot, you want it to be paved. I mean,
Well, sure, but I'm trying to alleviate the hardship of them having to go back and pave it.
well, that's kind of what I said a minute ago. If you alleviate every hardship on every auto repair shop, then what you need to do is just say we're not going to regulate. There's going to be a hardship on somebody no matter what you do, other than just a free-for-all.
The only reason I was in agreement, or I was being open-minded about bringing the discussion back up, I know you all, everyone in this room has worked diligently on this for years, and
You may be on this.
2 years, and I'm humbled coming in to not really have been on that process. However, the way I see it, and the reason I was open-minded, I do agree with Rodney. For all the businesses that did invest money to become compliant, I wouldn't want to take anything from those businesses. My biggest concern was the aesthetics of the city. I was very excited to vote and get the city cleaned up. And for that, you can clearly drive through and see the changes almost immediately. And for that, the quality of life is greater for me and for all. But I think, Rodney, in the last meeting, we were discussing what changed or what not. I think to have an open space for people to come and exchange experiences. That's what this is all about. And after the ordinance was changed, we had A1, for example, that came in and shared examples of what happened. And for me, meeting with him and talking with him, he lost 10 grand each month since so I was open-minded because to me, I do think that they have a unique type of business that because of the capacity of vehicles that they deal with. And he is unique. These vehicles are nicer, newer, and shinier than what's on the used car lots for sale. To me, that is part of the aesthetics of the city. So that's, going back with Miss Cora, Miss Cynthia, sorry. I agree with her too, because I don't want to put any businesses at hardship. I was in agreement of the ordinance to begin with. I guess I just did not know the fallout or the aftermath. And you can't respond to everyone who comes and shares their hardship. I understand that. There's no one size fits all. However, I was open to the idea that I do believe they are a unique business. And I don't know if there's any special consideration to treat everyone the same and be standard. You must all be the same and be very similar and comparable on all notes. And I'm not sure that they are. And that's the only reason I was open for further discussion. That's all I have to say.
And the only recommendation I had was that we go figure out a way to do, based on the number of bays, do 2 cars per bay as a compromise to serve both sides. And if the board doesn't think that's a manageable or enforceable option, then that's just...
Say that again.
So if you base it on the number of service bays, and we can base service bay based on a square footage. I mean, a normal car is 10 by 20, but if you've got a workspace for a car, then say in the A1 situation, they've got 15 bays inside their building, workspaces. So based on that, they could have 30 cars, but they only have 5 garage doors on their building. So right now, they can only have 20 vehicles. So what the compromise was to either you have an either or, number of bay doors or number of service bays based on the square footage. I think that we could set up so in their situation they could have 30 vehicles based on that idea.
So if we compromise with A1, we're going to compromise with Maxilube, we're going to compromise with
no, you've got other businesses that have just 2 doors. You've got Hill's Tire Store has only 2 garage doors. They've got 7 bays. So it's a way of serving both sides, those that have multiple bay doors and those that have one building with just a couple of bay doors.
Either we're going to have an ordinance, in the words of Mr. Smith, either we're going to have an ordinance or we're not going to have an ordinance. If you're the leader here, take charge.
I am trying.
And if you want to make a decision, make a decision. Don't be afraid.
I have made a decision of what.
It's just stop right. You want to roll this morning.
I'm sorry.
You rolling. Let me ask my question. Let me jump in real quick. If, as it stands per bay, and they've already said very clearly that there is discrepancy in what one defines as a bay, how then do you think that we set the standard for what a bay is?
I mean, a bay is generally where you've got a space.
Oh, I know what it is, but they've already clearly said that there could be several definitions of what a bay is. So how do we then attack that part that Maxilube's bay may not be A1's bay, but they both feel like they
Maxilube would be based on the number of doors they have. Because
so you saying you different.
Either or. You have a plan, you have a choice A or a choice B.
Okay, so if we do either or, and we're going to do it to accommodate businesses like A1 according to the bays they have, then we still have to go back and pave the make the folks pave the parking lot.
No,
I don't think that's going to work.
I'm not in the paving or the striping. I'm saying based on the number. We're basing right now based on the number of bay doors you have is what number of cars you have.
Just the plan B would be that you based on the number of service work areas, whether it's a
I don't see us having an ordinance and coming in with a plan A and a plan B, and then we're going to come back and we want a plan C.
What if we increase the amount of cars per bay door? If you went from 4 to 6?
You could do that.
We can do whatever we want to do.
Right.
We're in charge.
I'm just saying, does that help eliminate those who have not had a paved lot.
Not really.
So if you go to the bay doors, as it is right now, everything stays the same.
Well,
if you increase either bays or bay doors, parking is not the issue anymore. We're talking about bay or bay doors. So we only put forth the parking just to kind of, I don't know why, but anyway, we put forth that option. But if you just go bay or bay doors, then they don't have to pay for they don't have to pave the parking. We'll just leave the parking as is.
But I think the problem is what you asked us at the beginning of the year was to clean up the city. If you increase it to 6 or 7 cars per bay, you're going to have some lots that look just as junky as they did 6 months ago, because now they've got 5 bays or bay doors, and so now instead of 20, they get 30, and they can't fit 30 on that lot, and that's where we are. So instead you get them all piled up haphazardly. It looks terrible. So you just got to decide, what are you willing to do? If that means that A1 now has 10 parking spaces that they can't use, so be it. Then they've got a bigger space than what they can do. Cobb's doesn't have enough space to be able to have as many cars as he's allowed now per bay door, because he's outgrown his space. So 13th Street.
Across from Salvation Army.
Okay.
You would be surprised at some of the other municipalities that you don't feel like are as strict as we are in some areas of code enforcement, and how restrictive they are on auto repair shop. Places like Forest Park, that nothing against Forest Park, I got some good friends that live there, but you don't think about Forest Park being aesthetically pleasing as a municipality as we are, or at least I don't. Riverdale, for instance, those places are much more strict on auto repair shops than we have even thought about. So it's not like we're doing something out of the ordinary here. There are a lot of municipalities out there that are extremely strict because of the aesthetics involved with auto repair shop. And Tucson has some examples of some of those, but I don't want to cloud the issue with giving you a whole bunch of options. But we are extremely lenient in either of these scenarios. We're extremely lenient, more so than most, on this particular area.
Does any other board member have an opinion or position?
I'd like to hear what some of the garage owners have to say.
Well, we've already heard what everybody said. We're looking at options in regards to.
Well, they may have an option. They may have a suggestion that if we hadn't thought of.
I don't see where. Is there a garage owner that'd like to say something?
Yeah.
Come on.
Of course he does. Yeah, you know.
Please come before the mic and just put your name and address on the record.
Is this a public hearing?
It's not.
Good morning. My name is Chris Smallwood. I'm on Griffin Import at 605 West Taylor Street. You know, I'm not real sure what it takes to get rid of an ordinance, but I'm pretty sure what it takes to pass one. The ordinance that in question is, in my mind, the biggest hindrance for us is car count. And, you know, even if y'all pass an ordinance that is illegal or whatever, unlawful to work on cars in the city of Griffin, if it's on the books and you're not enforcing it, or in case something comes up and you have to, I'm fine with that. But these guys are pretty, I mean, they're breathing down our necks. And I just don't need the added pressure. I mean, again, just like I said in the last deal, if it comes down to an ordinance, get rid of the ordinance and just enforce the ones that you already have on the books and have been on the book for a long time, and that's cleanliness and appearance and things like that. I want to stay functional. And also, I think somebody had brought up the fact that all this money everybody's done spent, now I'm going to sue the city to get it back and all that stuff. What about all the money we're not making? Because we're not able to breathe, you know, to thrive. That's just what that's the way I see it. I mean, it seems like the more we start focusing on so many cars per bay, this, that, and everything else. It just seems to me like it's an endless. What about this? What about that? I say get rid of the car count thing, and send your people out to check in on us about this and that, cleanliness and this on the lot, that on the lot, car facing that way, this way. The car's been here this long. I mean, I don't mind talking to people and working with the community. I mean, I'm committed. The car count thing just scares me to death.
Right now, you've got 2 bays at your shop?
Yes, sir.
So
and
by
2 lifts.
ordinance, you're only allowed to have 8 vehicles after hours on your property?
Yep.
And how many parking spaces?
I was telling Truman over there that we could park 60.
Park how many?
Next to McDonald's?
60.
No, that's
You can
that's
park
not,
60 cars?
That's not even close.
Pretty close. High 50s. Not over 60, but high
In regard
50s.
to,
Sir?
but based on having it striped properly and having pathways to move cars and not stacking one behind the other.
Well, we couldn't do 60 that way. I mean, I'm just going to tell you.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Okay.
But bottom line is,
You can fit 60 cars on that.
We're talking about apples and oranges here about parking, like being able to get out of your car and go and shop at Walmart. That's parking space.
Right.
But vehicles that have accumulated, like she was talking about, then that's what I'm saying. Once you take care of the problem and everybody's done all this spring cleaning and stuff, well, sure, things kind of get back to, that's when you send your people back out. I mean, the car count thing, if it just starts building back up, send your people back out and say, hey, what's going on with these cars? How come they're missing these parts? Why is it facing this way? I mean, what's the matter with that?
The only ordinance that would help you, Mr. Smallwood, would be to do away with the ordinance. Because if we change the ordinance, what is being proposed today, that is really going to put a hardship on you. But getting rid of the ordinance, that would be in your benefit. But anything other than that is not going to, in my estimation, because you can't park what staff is deeming as parking. We can't park that many cars on your lot next to McDonald's. That couldn't happen. But I understand what you're saying, and we appreciate you coming forth.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So the consensus of the board, Mr. Brock?
I've got a new idea.
Okay.
It may not fly, but I need Jessica to listen to me.
Jessica.
But why can't we grandfather? We've let this happen over a long period of time. Way before I came, I see Tucson already shaking his head. So should I stop now?
No, go ahead.
But why can't we grandfather what we've got and give the program 5 years to say you're either going to come in compliance with the ordinance or some period of time?
Okay.
And then they either going to have to comply or move the business if they've grown to a point they've outgrown the lots. A lot of them have outgrown their lots. We're using old service stations as garages in downtown Griffin that should have been a long time ago done away with.
Amen.
That would not be within an ordinance in Griffin, Georgia, and the city of Griffin to do it that way. Why can't we grandfather those people and new business won't come in on West Taylor Street? Answer would be no. Not zoned to do that.
So we grandfather. You say grandfather all businesses in, grandfather them in to stay like they are, to go back to being junkyard.
Okay. I'm not in favor of that. Mr. Tinsley?
No.
Do you have anything?
No, I wish there was a one-size-fits-all, but I realize there's not. It's going to make a lot of people upset regardless of what we do. So, I visited Mr. Smallwood's shop, and, he's got 2 bays and an abundance of cars. So I hate, to cause people to lose business here in Griffin, but because he's cleaned up his shop, and those guys that were here last week, they kind of policed themselves, I think, to a certain extent. They were not cleaned it up. And they've commented that, hey, it does look a lot nicer, because that was our intent to begin with. Well, you guys' intent, 2 years ago when you started this, was to clean up the city. Get all the junk cars out, and I think they've done a good job with that. But as far as paving a parking lot, where it's now grass parking lot or dirt, striping it. I guess that would cost some money. Fortunately, I'm not in the car with the repair business.
A couple of years ago, we gave our staff instructors as to what we would like to see happen for the city to be cleaned up. They worked hard. It was not something they came up with overnight. They worked hard, and I think they came up with the best, most reasonable decision that they could. And when they brought it before us, after all the work going back and forth, we agreed as a board that that was what we would accept as the ordinance. As far as I'm concerned, nobody has come up with something that would be better, that would fit, be more reasonable. So I can't see nothing that's been said as a suggestion to me is going to be any better than what we have. As a matter of fact, I think it would probably be worse. You think you got some people out here now. If, like I said, you bring whatever it is that you got that has been proposed before the board. If the board, the majority of the board votes that that's what they want, then you're going to have to live with it. I can't.
Mr. McCord, we've got your position, unless you want to add something else.
No, I'm going to say this and I'm going to be done. This job right here, since 1994, and I've had the direction of Mr. Whalen and Mr. Keller. It's a job of making decisions. You can't be afraid of the decisions that you make, whether it's housing, whether it's car dealerships. I mean, auto repair shops. We got staff that is here today. They are looking for direction from us to go out and perform their duties. For one, I don't worry about these unpopular decisions. This is what it's about. You make a decision and you stick with it. This is what we're doing. When people came at us about recycling, that was a tough decision. Some people didn't want to do it, and we decided to do it. We made that decision and we stuck with it. And that's what this is about. These long 2-year discussions and 1 hour discussion of just, hey, I'm coming in here. This is what I plan to do. So I don't want to see. Mr. Smallwood does great work. I got a lot of friends that take their cars to him. Do great work. We're not trying to put him out of business, but the direction that this board took to staff was we want to clean up the city. We want our corridors to look proper and clean. That's what we said. They came back with an ordinance. The vote was unanimous, 7-0, and we said that's what we were going to do. And I don't believe in going back and changing because of we upset some people. You are going to upset some people. In this job right here, you are going to upset some people. Everybody is not going to be happy. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Murray?
I basically said what I was going to say earlier.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Flowers?
I would like to go on record saying that I am very sympathetic to the hardships that exist. But as it stands at this point, I have not seen a more viable option for addressing the issue than what we have currently.
And the one position I think we could consider would go to the 4 cars per door or 2 cars per service bay by definition that we would define based on the square footage. I think that doesn't throw the staff under the table. I don't think it is affecting what the current ordinance says. It just gives an either-or choice for existing businesses, and I wish this board would take that as a consideration as an alternative that would be fair, balanced, in treating folks that have fewer doors but larger space and with plenty of parking, an opportunity where they could have an either-or choice.
If that's your recommendation.
And that's my recommendation. If we've got folks that think that is a good choice, great. If you don't, then
that doesn't enforce the ones who've become compliant to go out and change to paved and striped parking.
This is
Just
basically.
mean they can go back in the cars that they have moved off their lot, they can bring them back and put them back on their lot.
But you'd have to have a certain number of bays in your building.
A lot of the junk cars that we got rid of.
No, there's nothing that would, we still have a junk car
The car
provision
was in
that
there
deals
before,
with
now they can
junk
bring them-
cars.
They can bring them back. They can pay somebody to bring it back.
So,
Is that correct, Tucson?
Yes, sir.
If we go with what Doug says, people can bring junk cars back on their lots. I don't think so. I don't think that's what it
I
means.
can't hear you, Tucson.
You
I
can
think
add,
Rodney's out of tune.
No, you won't have junk cars, but they will be able to bring back cars. They will be able to have more cars.
they can add more cars
They can add more
outside
cars.
of their building.
Correct.
it'd be 2 cars per bay, service bay, by definition, which we could have a definition, or have 4 cars per garage door, as the ordinance currently says. And that would give folks like A1 or Hills Tire Store, or anybody else that only has an in and out type of door, that has plenty of service bays, an opportunity to maximize what they need based on their service, based on their building and based on their facility.
How many doors does Arnie have?
He actually has like 5 doors.
5 doors?
Cops.
13th Street.
Oh.
So he can put 20 cars on his lot, which he couldn't even.
But he can't put 20 cars on
He
it.
can't fit 20 cars, so
So what he's done now is he's gone back behind his building and pushed over all the debris so he can pile cars up behind his building.
he could put
On-
cars
on
there,
dirt.
but he'd had to pave his, but he'd had to pave it, and right now you shouldn't be parking cars on unpaved surface there.
Well,
Right now, you shouldn't be doing what? Park cars on unpaved surfaces.
in theory, that's the case, but again, he's been existing, so there's not much you can necessarily say. Because Maxwell has the same dirt lot in the back of their building as well, but they've been using it for, I don't know, how many years.
But Maxwell, you've
Right.
got 2 doors per bay, so I mean, they could park 50, how many bays?
They've got, I'm not sure how many doors they have, but anyway, they don't necessarily have enough surface parking on their particular lot because they're using other means to park cars. But
Do we,
So that's my recommendation would be the 4-door or 4 cars per door or 2 cars per legitimate bay
Sure.
as an alternative.
What is a legitimate bay?
Well, it'd be a lift on it or a place that actual serviceable workstation based on a square footage, whether it's a.
What's the square footage?
I mean, whether it's a 10 by 20 is what a normal car is, it could be a.
And then when you start that, then basically what Jessica's saying, that now the staff's got to go in and measure
Well, you'd rate a
inside the building to see if it's.
But you could rate the buildings based on.
That's giving the staff a
I understand that.
whole lot
We're
of homework to have
back
to
to
do.
where we started.
Okay. So
But like
we
I
can
said,
leave it at this, right?
If whatever you
understand.
suggest, if you bring it before the board and the majority of the board vote,
Yes, ma'am.
then
and I
that's what
understand
it
that.
is.
And so that is my recommendation. If the board likes it, great. If they don't, then we stay with what we are. So, unless someone's got it better. Anything else?
I'd like to make a motion that we go into closed session.
I make a motion to go into pursuant to OCG section 501434, consider executive session for the purpose of authorized negotiations, purchase, dispose of, or lease property. We have a motion, Mr. McCord. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Tensley with a second. All right, let's go.
I know, that's what I'm saying, just mine.
All right, everybody got the purse? Everybody got the purse?
Y'all need this building. Chain them in there for the bill. He a wide open.
but I don't want to.
Ask away. I'm a big
All this mess, Sheila's probably. Yeah.
He said something stupid. He said something stupid, got his ass fired.
Yes, fired.
Well, he resigned before I fired him. See, our city charter doesn't allow me to hire a fire. That's what he said off. The city manager's on me, but I fired. I do the investigation, I make a recommendation, but that takes time. What happens is between, when they know I'm fixing to recommend them to get fired, they quit before it gets to me. So it is essential to know that. So, yeah.
Now, why, it happened in August, why are they making a big deal of it? Well, I saw where he said he messed up.
Yeah. He says, what you gonna do, people say stupid.
Can't say stupid.
He's been here for 8 years. I don't believe I would have hired him, but I did get there. And I had a couple of disciplinary issues with him. That's how he got transferred out to show full control, and he made it about 3 weeks. They won't let me shoot him, but don't put so what you want to do?
Hey, what's up, man?
As far as the time delay goes,
What you do? Come back, just went out?
he wanted to interview me, but I told him, I said, it's a personnel matter. It's a
Well, I just saw it online as everybody else. Then I looked at the timestamp and it was August, and it's October, so to me, it's, oh.
He was terminated 2 days after that. So, it's pissy because I busted him on that.
Yeah, well, they're all in the news.
I know, that's what it's all about, is he's mad because I exposed him to 7 years.
Yeah, well, the little boy.
Better not. I don't want to write about you, dear.
Well, that's for me unwilling.
Who funeral you going to?
Are you going to something?
I don't know, but I wasn't going to.
He got on so.
Are you likely to hear your soul?
Did somebody vote to come out of closed session?
If it was earlier, maybe.
We have a motion to come out of closed session.
Second.
Who was the motion?
Read it, I mean, for
Who made the
that.
motion to come out of closed session?
I'll make it.
Ms. Ward
Make
with
it
the
in
motion.
second.
Do we have a second by Ms. Flowers? All in favor, say aye. Do we have a motion to go, to adjourn the meeting? We have Mr. McCord with a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
A second.
Mr. Brock with a second. Go to session, all in favor, please leave.
I'll let you Okay, I see down next week.
I mean, if I feel that we have the confidence of the thing, I mean, in terms of the part, I mean, I just need to have direction from 3 other members. Do y'all like to decide here or not, or whether the staff needs to develop a
I just think that I'm going to one scrap because he wants to purchase, but the owner of the property right now doesn't consent. So he can't just come in and put them available.
I was looking for a sympathetic A or B option. So it's like, you know, Bill's terms, whoever doesn't have that deep door
then y'all make reports.
I voted on it.
Oh, no, this didn't have anything to do with what we discussed today.
That as it developed.